Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our Q&A where we sit down in these orange chairs and we answer all of the questions that you guys have submitted, and we've got some great questions today. We have a great topic that is a continuation from last week. Actually, my guess is this is going to be a continuation of questions and conversations over the next couple of years.
Not surprising at all if that turned out to be the case.
If you missed us last week, we jumped into a bunch of questions that you guys had about our Imagine More capital campaign to add to our campus here to build a brand new auditorium and lobby and children's area, and we're super excited about the direction that we're going, and we know that with vision and with a direction that we're leading you guys have questions, and we're here to answer them.
We are. It's like, we want to spend $2.8 million. It's like, I have a question.
Yeah, most of us don't have $2.8 million just laying around.
Exactly.
And that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And we're going to get into that because there's nothing probably more relevant for the church to be talking about than money and sex, right?
Yep. Yes is the answer to that question.
And those are the two things that it seems like people, when they have church hurt or they have maybe negative images of the church or something has happened, it usually revolves around those two things, either sex or money.
Church scandals.
Right.
They're almost always around those two things. And it's fascinating to me that in 1 Timothy chapter 3, where Paul talks about, in the last days what's going to happen, and he talks about leaders that are really bad leaders. They're false leaders. They're false teachers. And their lives are characterized, and he has several terms in there, but when you really organize the terms, you realize it comes down to sensuality, sexuality, or materialism and greed. It always seems like church scandals are going to be around one of those two issues.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is a reality, and we know that a lot of you have maybe concerns or worries or experiences in the past that color or taint you moving forward and maybe even participating in this capital campaign with us. So, Dave, before we jump into these questions, I just kind of want to talk about this kind of openly and freely, and give some insight and some background into maybe some of the safeguards here at Connections, because you said something interesting on Sunday. We were in your sermon. You were talking about struggles, and really, it's a wise investment, right?
Yes,
you used that term. It's a wise investment.
Absolutely.
Which I think we can agree with. The biblical principles are there. If you haven't seen the sermon, go back and watch our live stream from this past Sunday. I want people to understand why it's not only a wise investment. I want them to understand why it's a safe investment.
Yeah, okay. I get you. So it's like most Christians would agree, investing in the kingdom of God, great. But to invest in the kingdom of God, I'm investing in an institution that's filled with people. How do I know I can trust them with what they say? That is so legitimate. In our culture, we've got to be discerning as to where to give. You can go online, and there are organizations that will let you know if you want to give to these charitable organizations, here's how much of every dollar you give that actually goes to meet the need.
Right.
And then they'll give them a grade. And that is so helpful. Because it's like if I want to give $100 to help starving people in a third world country, but of the $100, 15 goes to them and 85 goes to administrative expense. It's like, that's not a good investment, right? So here's the way Connections operates financially. First, neither I nor any pastoral staff can spend whatever money we want to spend. We don't do any of that. We are actually given a board budget. We have to turn in receipts so that we can account for all the ways we have chosen to spend the money that we're allotted to spend by our finance committee and our elder board. And it's important to understand that all everyone who is on the elder board and the finance committee is privy to all the information, every penny. There's not one person. There's 12, 15 people that know where every single dime is going. And we hold each other accountable for that. We have an actual certified CPA who acts as our treasurer. Mm-hmm. So this person knows how to keep books. They know about reporting procedures, and they report to the government all the time on everything. So we've got that in place. Every couple of years, we do an audit, an outside independent audit of where our books, of the state of our books. We also issue an annual report where we let people know this is how much money came in, this is where all the money went. If people need more detail, we're happy to answer those questions. But it is true that 100% of the money that comes into Connections goes to church ministry. Now, I include in that our salaries, right? We get paid for devoting the full-time effort into the ministry, like the Bible commends and teaches. But all of it goes for that. When we have special projects, it might be raising money for our missionaries, or it might be a building project. Every single dime that comes in earmarked for that goes for that. It always goes there. And again, all of that is presented in our annual report that's available to anybody who wants it. So we have internal controls. It's always done in teams rather than individuals. Reports are issued. Public accountants oversee it all, audit it all, just to make sure that we're being transparent and that people can have confidence that the money that they donate, that they choose to give to God through Connections, is going for what we say it's going for.
Yeah. And if somebody wanted to get that last year's annual report, the 2024 annual report, mm-hmm. what would be the best way for them to receive it?
The best way would be to email and ask. Well, it's a digital copy, so we don't mail out hard copies. We send it to everybody on our mailing list. Now, we've got way more people on our mailing list than we have actually come to church here, right? People who visit
sure.
our town, they all get it. It's like it is as public as we can make it. Normally what we do is when we issue the annual report, there's a tab on our website that's up for a month or so where you can click it and there that it is. But if you didn't copy or you don't know where yours went, all you have to do is say, hey, could I get a copy of the annual report? We're happy to do it.
Yeah.
The annual report will highlight what we accomplished over the year as a church. Then it will give you our finances going into the year, what came in, what we spent, our financial status as of right now, and what our general budget is going into the next year.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and I'm going to throw up the email address right now on the bottom of the screen.
Cool.
So you can just email us right here at connections@my3c.org. And if you just put in the subject line, annual 2024 annual report, and we'll make sure that you guys get a copy of that. Because here at Connections, one thing that we definitely want to lead with is a level of transparency in all that we do. It's why we do the Q&A. This is the whole reason. One, we encourage the questions. We encourage you to be questioning what is happening here. Challenge us. If you hear something from the stage, put it in a question. Let us debate it. Let us talk about it. Because everything has to then come back to the authority of God through the Word of God. And that's where we try to always come back to. But we're human too. So push, challenge, ask questions. But that comes also through all of our finances and all of the money that comes in. We want to be as transparent as possible and make sure that you have all of the information, because we know that there are institutions or organizations that don't lead with transparency.
That's correct.
And so we want to make sure that we are that, so you can put as much of your confidence and trust in everything that we're doing right here. So.
Yep, we have nothing to hide. We believe that transparency and honesty helps stimulate generosity. because people can have a confidence that what they're giving to is actually going to what it is that they intend.
Right. Good. All right. Well, I wanted to kind of lead with that and kind of
that was good. That was good.
You kind of get us to a place where we can just make sure everybody's on the same page and understanding. But if you have more questions, maybe about the workings of a church, maybe you're new to church and you still have questions. You've seen things on TV, that televangelist is always asking for money. Are you guys like that? Please write to us and let us know. You can go to our website, my3c.org, click on Ask a Question, fill out your question. It's all anonymous. We don't know who asked the question, and then we can answer it here on a future Q&A. But let's jump into the questions that were submitted for this week. They all are around our Imagine More campaign or around that topic. So let's jump in to this first question. It says, what factors went into the decision to expand our church building? Were there options considered that could meet our needs without it costing so much?
Yeah, two really great questions. And of course, Steve, you've been in from the ground floor, years ago on this one, so you can answer this question probably as well as I can. But what I'll do to start with is to go, I'll answer the first question first, and then we'll get to the second. What factors went into the decision? Whenever Connections has made, in the entire time I've been here, which is 25 years, so most of the church history, 25 of the 29 years I've been here, there has been one question that we have always had to answer in the affirmative before we have ever taken any significant financial move, before we've made a significant financial move. And that question basically goes like this. What pressing needs would be met? And will this move significantly enhance our ability to fulfill our church mission? If we're not meeting a pressing need that has come up, and in meeting that need, we're not doing something that would significantly enhance our capacity to do our mission, we simply don't do it. I can think back to 4 or 5 times that we've made such a decision. And they're all to scale. Early on, they looked a lot smaller than they do now. But it's like in 2003, we made the decision to leave the multi-purpose room of the upper elementary school and move into the high school and rent the performing arts center, the gymnasium, and the cafeteria to do church in on Sunday morning. We made that decision because, one, we had outgrown the multi-purpose room we were meeting in. Second, it was a horrible room to do. It was a square of cement walls and the sound bounced everywhere. Singing, speaking was a nightmare. We had to, unpack everything, set church up, try to adjust it right, do church, cringe, take it down, repeat.
Did you guys have children in there too?
The children began in there, but then they went into the gymnasium where they did we called it Extreme Zone at the time.
At the elementary school?
At the elementary school,
Gotcha.
That is correct. So they went kind of down the hall. And so what we did is we decided to make the move, and at the time we were spending $50 a week renting. $50 a week to rent the multi-purpose room and the gym. But when we moved to the high school, it was $750 a week. And it was like, okay, this is a big move. But we met a pressing need, and we knew that this would really enhance our capacity to do ministry. So we moved into the high school. And then in around 2005 or early 2006, we were like, you know what? We believe that we need a home of our own. Again, we were meeting challenges to our mission. One, the number of people that we invited, tried to be a part of our church, who looked at us as a transitory organization because we were a church without a home, without a building. And we know as Christians, you don't need to be a building to be a church. But the people you're trying to invite and reach are like, so you're that group that just doesn't even have a building of your own, like every other church we know. So there was that. The fact that we had grown to the place that we were stretching the size that we had, which is why we went to 2 services at one point. Then the stress on our volunteers. We would show up early on Sunday morning, unpack everything, set up the pack with our own sound equipment because theirs didn't work, our own projection, our own sound. We set up the gym sound, everything for kids, set up the cafeteria for students, sound, everything. And then ran 2 services, packed it all back up in a box and put it away. I mean, it was such a stress on our volunteers. In addition, we were always at the mercy of the school schedule. And when they had productions, we found creative ways to try to work their set on the stage into how we were going to do church on a given morning. There were times we couldn't use the building because, obviously it's the school's facility. They came first. And it's like, this is just, we can't keep moving forward because right now we've got some needs. So we said we need a home of our own. So we decided to buy the church property we're on right now, which is 20 acres of land right on 131 prime real estate. But that was like $790,000 for the piece of property. But we decided to go ahead, we're going to buy that. So we raised the funds and got enough money to put the down payment down. And then it was in 2014, we decided we're going to pay off the land and we're going to do the planning and raise the funds to build phase 1 of our church building. And we did that because we're like, okay, we're still in the pack. We've got this land. We need to get moving on it. So we had our other fundraiser to be able to do that. We did master planning. And what a lot of people may not know is we actually have a master plan for our campus that is 5 or 6 phases long at least. It includes recreational fields, outdoor areas, playgrounds, picnic areas. We want, and the reason we bought 20 acres, we want our church campus to be a blessing to our community 7 days a week.
Right.
Not a Sunday morning only deal, but we want eventually our surrounding communities to go, man, if you want to go work out, if you want to go for a jog, if you want to take your kids to a playground, if you want to go on a picnic, if you want to go to a cafe, grab a cappuccino and read a book, you can go to Connections and it's all there and available for you. Right. So that was a part of the vision that we planned for, and then we obviously built phase 1. Then in 2023, we're like, man, we're running out of space with 2 services. And so what we did is we said, okay, we're going to go to 3 services, and we built with cash phase 2, which we're sitting in right now.
Yeah.
The AV room, the staff offices, because our staff had no place to meet.
Right.
Our kids didn't have room on Sunday morning. Our students didn't have a spot. So we built the multi-purpose room, the offices, this AV room, a reception area, all because of the need what was there, and this can enhance our mission. And now we're in 2025, and same thing. As we have been outlining during the campaign, these are the challenges we have in our current facility. Can we meet the pressing needs and significantly enhance our capacity to fulfill our God-given mission? And when we answered that affirmatively, we said, well, let's go ahead and move. Let's go ahead and make the decision to build more, to add on to our campus and do phase 3.
Dave, just because I've been part of all of these conversations on the back end, maybe you can give some insight through some of our conversations of just brainstorming other alternative options.
Yeah, other options. And we did, because if we could find a way to do this without spending this money, we were going to get it done, right? So here's what we did. And how long, Steve? A year and a half ago, 2 years, we started having these conversations?
Oh, yeah, at least.
At least, yeah. So,
well, I maybe even before that, when we were making that decision to go to 3 services, and then
that's true.
We did
that's
3
true.
services, and we did not feel that relief that we were expecting.
Yeah.
that's when the real conversation began. And what do we do? We have to do something.
That's exactly right. So here are options that we seriously considered, explored, and felt they weren't the right ways to go. Number one, we said, let's do a fourth service. Either on Sunday morning or on a different night of the week. So we explored the fourth service option. It was we became convinced that the stress on volunteers by going to a fourth service would just put us in tilt mode with volunteers. In fact, in our research, what we found is that if you go to a third service, it needs to be temporary while you're building something, because 3 services, unless you are truly a church of thousands of people and you have tons of volunteers and all different people, 2 worship teams, teaching teams doing different, all that sort of stuff. Unless you're in that, if you're doing 3 services, it needs to be temporary. So we thought, man, going to 4 might not make the most sense for our staff, for our volunteers, in particular. Then we thought, okay, let's satellite. What if we found another location that people could meet in, and it's almost like a church plant, and we could get a group of volunteers together, they could pioneer this thing, we would support them, and what we would do is we would bankroll it. There would be the renting of the facilities, there would be the need to buy all this equipment to be able to project and do sound and worship and all that kind of stuff. So we explored that possibility for a while. And what it came down to was this. It came down to the fact that it is expensive to do. The initial outlay of just the equipment that you need, followed by the renting of whatever facilities, if it's going to be conducive to doing church at all, is prohibitive. Most of the good spaces are already gone. They're already being used. And the ones that aren't are really expensive. So it was like, okay, we're going to spend a ton of money to do something with less quality, and it just didn't seem like a good option to us.
In addition, we would have to staff that.
We would have, absolutely. We've got to staff it. So there's the staffing expense, because it is now considered best practice. If you're going to do a satellite campus, there needs to be one full-time person who their whole job is that campus, those people reaching that area. Right. So we were looking at another full-time staff member to get that done. And we're like, this is just not a good option for a very short-term fix. If that hopefully we keep growing, then we're right back in the same boat. As they grow, they'll need more stuff. It didn't look like a good option. Then we thought, could we just get something portable and put it on our land? So we explored portable classrooms. How much did they cost? That kind of stuff. Wow, do they cost a lot of money?
Yeah.
We even thought about how big of a tent could we buy? And outside the box, huge tent, put heaters in it, everything else. So we explored that option, and then we're like, we do live in Michigan. And the quality of what you do is just going to be so much less. So it was like, okay, that's not a good option either. It always came back to the best solution, most cost-effective in the long run, is to go ahead and expand our facility for now.
Yeah, and we talked, and we even took measurements. We did a lot of exploring to say, can we utilize our current facility in a different way? Because all these walls were built temporarily. I mean, they're not load-bearing walls, so we can restructure our current.
That's exactly what.
So we even thought, well, what if we knock out the back wall to the auditorium and push it into the lobby to expand for more seatings? Or what if we blow out the back wall of the auditorium and go outward and keep things? And it came down to the cost involved to do that was not that significant of enough of a difference to put into a brand new facility
to get the gains we need.
Right.
And if and this will this may come up later. Maybe now is the best time to share it. But it's like, whenever you get into, we're going to remodel, It is amazing how much more it costs per square foot. If we move that back wall back, and by the way, Zion Construction that we've been partnering with in the planning, they helped us at, here's what you can do here, here's what you do here, here's what you'll find. So they helped us to explore these avenues. If we blew out the back wall of our current auditorium and just made it bigger that direction, which we could do, in addition to the fact that the remodeling costs are fairly extensive, it doesn't solve 1 square foot of kids ministry space problems.
Right.
Then we'd have to blow out their back wall and go that way. And then we're like, well, it's actually cheaper to build a new building than it is to go that route. So we explored those possibilities, not to mention the fact that we would have support beams that would be in the way if we blew the auditorium out that direction, because it wasn't made to expand that way.
Right.
So yeah, we explored all those options, and there was no way to reconfigure our current facility or just expand a part of our current facility and meet the pressing needs we had all across the board. There's one
Dave,
there.
What about doing nothing? I'm sure that there's some people who are like, why do we have to do anything? Why can't we just keep things as they are?
We can. And not be faithful to the mission God gave us. And I don't ever think that's an option. There are people right this moment that are lost, that God is stirring up to seek him. I want to make sure, how many times have I said this in the last month? There needs to be room in our hearts and in our building for every seeking person to come. We cannot stop reaching out to people. Jesus said he came to seek and to save the lost. Now, I'm going to reckon that if we're following him at all, that's what we're doing. So, doing nothing and just going, okay, the building is our lid, we can't do anything more, we'll just be happy with it, is an option we could not live with, because it meant not being able to continue pursuing our mission. And that is the one thing that is truly unacceptable.
Right.
As we've stated repeatedly in the teaching series that we just concluded, you can't do anything for God without it costing your blood, your sweat, and your tears. It's the price tag for anything. And we look at this and we go, man, this is going to take our blood, sweat, and tears. And it's like, yep, so does anything else you really want to do for God. We have been blessed by God in the past because we have been willing to do that very thing. Now, we have done it under God's leadership. We have done it always answering the question I presented. Are we meeting pressing needs in a way that will significantly enhance to pursue our mission and vision? We have made those in the past, and we have seen nothing but God honor those that are willing to take that step to move his kingdom forward. And we have every confidence he's going to do the same thing on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving in line.
It's the scene from Braveheart, Steve.
Explain.
Along with The Shawshank Redemption, one of the top 5 movies ever made. So, to say that, at some point, when this ragtag bunch of Scotsmen were just running around doing all different stuff, they needed to pull all the clans together in order to really defeat the English and gain their freedom. And so William Wallace was invited to a meeting. And his closest confidant, his childhood friend, said, "Don't go, man. You know this is a trap." And he goes, "It might be. But if we don't unite the clans, nothing's going to happen." And he goes, here's what he said. He goes, "You know what will happen if I don't go?" And his friend goes, "No, what?" And he goes, "Nothing." And his point was, yeah, I know there's a risk involved, but doing nothing is never the right way to go forward. And it's like, that's how we feel. I mean, it's like, if we play it safe and do nothing, that's not really an option.
That's right.
We have a mission, the freedom and eternal salvation of human beings. Yeah, it's worth going after.
That's right. There you go. Dave Sanders, our own William Wallace. So if you want to see Dave Sanders in a kilt, put it down in the
How
chat.
How did his story turn out?
Put it in the chat right now that you want to see Dave Sanders in a kilt. See those knobby knees sticking out.
Well, you know what? I'll take the kilt over the rack.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. Let's jump into this next one because obviously we want to follow God's will for our church, His direction. What kind of examples do we have? So the question is, did God's people raise funds in the Bible?
Oh, that's a great
so,
question. Yeah.
How'd they do it?
Yeah. Great question. The answer is yes. In fact, in preparation for this campaign, I went back and worked through the 5 significant fundraising endeavors that we find in the scripture that God's people did.
Okay.
There was Moses in building the tabernacle, the temporary worship center of God's people. Then there was David and the temple, the permanent worship center, supposed to be permanent. Then there was Hezekiah and the restoring of the temple that had been looted, fallen into disrepair, a bunch of bad stuff happened. There was Nehemiah, who rebuilt Jerusalem, which is the epicenter of Jewish culture and worship. And then there was, essentially under Paul, the effort of the Macedonian churches to raise significant special funding for relief of those that were in famine and were facing pressing needs. So I went back through those 5 great, significant fundraising endeavors in the Bible to say, God, what are some principles that we can glean from these to guide us as your people trying to do the same thing? And it just so happens I jotted them down, Steve.
Perfect. Because
I needed them to guide me. And here are the ones that stood out to me as I went through these 5. The first one was this: raising funds to build facilities for spiritual purposes is a God-honoring thing. I mean, 4 of the 5 special fundraising endeavors were for a facility, a building that was going to be used for the worship of God, the teaching of His word, the training of His people, and in turn, the evangelizing of the nations. So that's a really righteous thing if you're building a facility and it's all for God's purpose and God's work being done. The second thing I know is this: there was always a clear explanation of what you were giving to and why. And I think that's so important. The why is the vision. And whether it be Moses or David or Nehemiah or Hezekiah or Paul, they spent time to go, here's the why. Here's the vision. Here's what can happen through the gifts that we give and the difference it will make in the world. Now that you understand the why, the vision behind it, here's what it's going to take. It like marries the vision and the practical aspect of it. So there's the lofty theoretical, the vision casting, here's what can be, but here's what it's going to take to get it done. Those were a part of every one of those campaigns. So again, we've tried to do that in this particular one. The third thing I noticed is that people in every one of these gave willingly from their heart because God prompted them to give. These special endeavors, there was never any guilt tripping. There was never any manipulating of the emotions. It was just, here's the vision, here's what it'll take. God put it in people's heart and they wanted to give, so they gave. Now, I do find something very instructive here, Steve, as I was working through this. It says in Exodus 35:20 as an example, and they came forward, everyone whose heart was whose heart stirred him up. And everyone whose spirit was willing, they brought an offering to the Lord for the work. So that's that willingness. I want to do this. These people gave, one, out of gratitude for what God had done. These people that I just referred to, had just gotten free from slavery in Egypt, had seen God miraculously deliver them and bring them to this place, and unfolded this incredible vision before them of what they could be in the world. Man, if we're not motivated by the same thing, Steve, just gratitude for what God has done. Second, I think these people were also motivated because they understood everything they had was a gift entrusted to them by God. I mean, what have they been doing for the last 400 years? Working as slaves. They didn't have anything. But when they were freed from bondage, the Egyptian people said, here, take our gold, take our jewels, take some money, just go. And they had these coffers that were nothing other than a gift that God gave to them, that they went, this is God's, he blessed me with this. If I can use this for him, awesome. Steve, every dime I have in my bank account is a trust given to me by God.
Yeah.
Everything I own, my 9 backpacks, my 14 pairs of hiking boots, right? The car that I drive, the home I live in, it's a gift from God that he's entrusted to me. And so I just look at it like it's stewardship. I'm not taking my stuff and giving some back to God. It's God's stuff. And if he wants a part of it, here you go. I still enjoy the lion's share.
Yeah.
I live in it. I drive it. My needs are met. So if he wants any of it, he's got it. By the way, if he wants it all, it doesn't belong to me.
Right.
If he wants it all, Steve, it doesn't belong to me. And I need to be willing to give it all up if that's what the Spirit of God asked me to do, because it belongs to him.
Right.
And the third thing I thought about these people is they had a strong desire for the will of God to be done in the world. They had a sense of calling. Because this building project that they were involved, this happened to be the tabernacle on this one, was about worshiping God to become his people in the world as I lead you to the promised land. And through you, the whole world's going to be blessed. They're going to come to know me. And they're going to be, in today's vernacular, we say, they're going to be saved. They're going to be redeemed. Their entire life and eternity are going to be altered. And I think between gratitude for what God has done, this sense of stewardship, all I have is given to me by God, and this sense of vision, I have a calling to do the most amazing thing in the world. No wonder they were willing to give. And so should we be, because we have the same reasons to give that they did. So it was just something that really impressed me when I looked at why were they so willing to give. When I looked at them in their context, it matches up. Fourth thing that I found in working through these 5 significant giving endeavors, leaders set the example. There have been things I've been debating, saying this entire campaign. But I look at what David did in the campaign to raise funds for the temple, what Hezekiah did in raising the funds to restore the temple and the worship of God in the world. And they both outlined, here's what I'm giving. And by the way, it was a lot. And what I've come to realize is that no leader should ever ask anybody to do something he or she is not willing to do. And Steve, God is my witness. I just want to be transparent, but God is my witness. I've never asked somebody to do something I'm not willing to do, ever. And as we move into this particular campaign, one of the things that God laid on my heart was this. I've been saving money for a little while to soften the blow of retiring that's down the road, but it's coming. And I need to be ready for that. And so I've been saving money in preparation for that. And one of the things God put in my heart was this. Give it. Just give it all. And I'm like, man, Dave, sometimes you have some really dumb thoughts. And then it's like the Spirit of God going, what you trusting in for my future, your future? And so my commitment as part of my sacrifice for this campaign is I'm giving all of that. And I say that because I'm trying to follow the example of David. I want anybody to know who stands up and hears me say things on Sunday about give and sacrifice. I'm not asking anything of you that I am not obligated to do.
Right.
And I am doing. So, I always feel awkward doing it, but it's like, I just need people to know. I know our church staff. In fact, I've had some conversation with leaders in our church staff, included significant contributions. Because leaders lead the way. It's always got to be that way.
Right.
And then the fifth thing that really struck me is that everybody's gift mattered. Some people that gave toward these campaigns, man, they were loaded. But they gave a bunch. There was somebody who actually took the time in today's dollars to figure out what's the monetary equivalent of everything David listed he gave to the building of the temple. And it was tens of millions of dollars.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's like, whoa. Because it was just David. He was a man after God's own heart, and it's what he wanted to give. And anyway, it's what he gave. And there were others that gave a minuscule amount compared to that. But here's what's fascinating. Everybody sacrificed. Sacrifice is always measured against what you've got, not what's the volume that you give, right? We talked last week in Q&A about the widow who threw in the 2 copper pennies, right?
Right.
It's like Jesus goes, now there's a sacrificial gift right there. It is about equal sacrifice, not equal gifts. It is when a group of people get together and they go, I am going to make a sacrifice for God's work in the world. That sacrifice looks different for everybody, but that spirit, God looks at it and goes, I'm blessing that. I'm going to do some amazing things through those people because of where their heart is at and what they're willing to do for me. So those are just some principles that really struck me as I work through those 5 significant fundraising endeavors that took place in the Bible that are guiding us in the way we're doing our fundraising now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was just thinking through, obviously, if everyone who called Connections home gave in a sacrificial way, man, what a change we could have in our community.
Steve, I believe that if everybody gave in an equally sacrificial way, we'd have all $2.8 million to go ahead and just build that building with cash.
Right.
It isn't that we don't have the capacity. It's that sometimes we struggle with the willingness. I'm going to change that. I think most people are willing, but they struggle with the degree of sacrifice to make and how that looks. And that really comes down to a faith issue, which is something that I think we probably need to flesh out a little bit more, because I think people are willing to give, but sometimes pulling the trigger on what God has put in your heart to do, it's a tough one, right? So I don't think willingness is really the issue for most people. I think it's gulp when, and did he say gulp?
Maybe.
Yeah. But it's just like, yep, it's when it comes to actually doing that, suddenly we're faced with, this is going to cost me something. Yep, the nature of sacrifice.
It's a challenge too when we live in a day and age where man, if one church is asking you to sacrifice, man, you could pack up and just go down the road to another church that's not going to ask you to, because but this is not about a connections thing. This really is not about connections. This is about God continuing to build his kingdom in this place, because we believe that on this property, on this piece of land, he has blessed us with this to make the biggest impact in the world.
That's exactly right.
And how do we stay faithful to that?
How do we stay faithful to that? We are one piece of a global puzzle that the Holy Spirit is orchestrating. I celebrate every piece that take risks, God's blesses, they reach people, lives are changed. That's a win for the team. This is my puzzle piece.
Yeah.
Right? This is our puzzle piece. Everybody that calls Connections home, we're this one piece. We need to do our job. We need to make our sacrifice so that this place can do its maximum under the Spirit's direction, design, and calling to change this world and to build God's kingdom. So it's the Spirit that we have had. It's the Spirit we will continue to have, because I think it's the Spirit of Jesus.
Yeah, which is going to lead us beautifully into this final question, because I think there's a lot of people that may have that spirit. They may desperately want to make that big step, that sacrificial step, and they struggle with the reason and the realistic understanding that we live in a real world that has demands. You have to pay your mortgage. You have to fill your car with gas. You have to make payments. You have to keep the lights on.
That's right. That's right.
And there are factors that we can't control too, right?
For sure.
Which is going to lead us into this final question. And it's about the stock market. Because with the stock market going crazy, now we can't control the stock market. There might be some powerful people out there that are manipulating and controlling it, but it is not us. So with the stock market going crazy, I'm uncertain about what I should give to the Imagine More campaign. How do you balance faith and reason when it comes to giving?
Yeah, well, boy, is there a lot there. First of all, the stock market is going crazy, so there's no refuting that. And by the way, it has shaken a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And understandably so. I mean, it's like the vast majority of people, their retirement is tied up in the stock market. So I get that this is very real. And when you see big plunges, no matter what you call them, it's frightening. And then, of course, you also have the people that will want to exploit this in order to gin up an extra measure of fear because they have their own agenda that they're trying to drive. Welcome to the world we live in, right? It's inevitable to have happen. I do think that keeping a cool head is probably a good idea no matter what goes on, and those are the people that usually come out ahead in the long run, right? It's like things that are said all the time and everybody believes until there's an upheaval, and then it's like we want to chuck those principles and go, what should I do? Don't ever make a panic-driven decision. It's just, I don't think it ever works out right. What I do find fascinating is this, because I see this in Christian circles. I look at the reaction and the fear, the uncertainty, the apprehension, and I get it. But I go, is this maybe why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6, don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and vermin come in and steal and ruin, but lay up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where nothing gets stolen and nothing gets lost. It's like I look at this and go, well, this seems to be verification of exactly what Jesus said. And if my treasure is laid up on earth rather than in heaven, I'm going to get freaked out when this happens. Isn't it interesting? Jesus concluded that little teaching by going, because where your treasure is, there your heart will be also.
Yeah.
And then I think of the words that Jesus also gave to the Apostle Paul found in 1 Timothy chapter 6, where he goes, those that are rich in this present world, We're always like, yeah, those rich people. Yeah. You and I, Steve, and we don't make a ton of money, but we're rich in the terms Paul is using.
Right.
With what we have. If you got more than your daily bread, you fall into the rich category for what was referred to back then. We're just so blessed financially in our culture. But the rich, command them not to put their hope in riches, which are so uncertain. It's like, there's another example. Markets go up, markets come down. Housing value goes up, housing value. I mean, all of it, right? So it's like, this is exactly what Jesus said. So Jesus, through Paul, continues by saying, so command them. Do good. Be generous. Be willing to share. Be rich in good deeds. Because then you will really lay up a good foundation for your life and the life to come. If you really want to live life, invest it in these sorts of things. So I say all of that to go, one, Jesus said it works this way. But number two, I think our emotional reaction to economic upheaval could serve a beautiful purpose in helping us to evaluate, where is our hope really? Is our hope in, you know what? My savings are good, my investments are up, my retirement stock portfolio looks pretty good, I'm set. When Jesus goes, no, that doesn't work that way. That could be gone in a heartbeat. But if your hope is in a faithful God who has promised to care for his people, then I'm not so emotionally impacted. I mean, it's not like I go, because I'm going like, well, crap. I'm sure that my investments are going down like everything else. I wish it wasn't happening, but that's not where my hope is. That could all be gone, and God will still take care of me in the future, because he has every single one of his children who choose to trust in him. So it's like, this is a good chance just to evaluate, where's my hope really?
Right.
It's just a good chance. And if it's not squarely in God and God alone, put it in him and him alone. He is the only sure bet in the universe, is God. So, just an observation. Balancing faith and reason. Man, is that a real life question.
Yeah.
First of all, I sense this person really wants to give, but now they're just being shaken in how much because of what's happening. I get it. I sense this person wants to act out of faith, but they also want to be not be stupid, right?
Right.
I want to be reasonable because, like you said, I've got to live. So what do? The most reasonable thing any human being can do is trust God. There is nothing more reasonable, more rational. If God is real, if God is who he says he is, then trusting him is the most reasonable, rational thing in the universe. Everybody lives by faith because everybody is basing their life on something or someone they believe to be credible enough that they can lean into it for direction in life. I'm suggesting that God is that one thing. And if he is who he says, then trusting him makes all the sense in the world. And every single story in the Bible is intended to help us see that that is absolutely true. So it is not irrational to operate by faith. If that faith is in God and his faithfulness in keeping his promise, so I will do what he asked me to do. It is the most reasonable thing to operate by faith if you're doing that. Here are some things that the Bible tells us that by faith we need to embrace and incorporate into our life that are really relevant in this area. 1, God says you need to take care of your family. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Second, God says, you need to save for future needs. Proverbs chapter 6, the whole story about the ant, saving for future needs. The third thing that he says is, you need to return the first 10% of all your increase to me as an act of love, faith, and worship. 4, you need to give to the poor and the needy. These things are just simply true. 5, avoid debt. Just avoid it. If you're in it, get out of it and don't go in it again. Now, those 5 principles should form the baseline for every single person's financial life and lifestyle. I am going to make sure I'm meeting the needs of my family. I'm going to make sure that I am saving for future inevitabilities. I'm returning the first tenth. I'm doing something to help the poor and the needy, and I'm avoiding debt. Most people would enjoy life about 100 times more if they would just abide by those 5 principles. Right there. It would reduce stress. It would bring freedom. It would bring joy. It would release a fuller measure of God's blessing on their life. That should be the baseline for which you operate. And there are so many people whose financial houses are not in order. So might I say to everyone, might challenge everyone, look at those 5 principles, and if your house isn't in order, make putting it in order your priority right now. Because this is what God, and if it's reasonable to act in faith to God by doing what he commands and what he directs, there's 5 things I just gave you that he commands us to do. Let's arrange our financial life around it. It will bless you immeasurably. It will also free you to be able to be more generous like I know you want to be. Then, God sometimes will come to us and go, I want you to make a sacrifice. Man, you don't have to read very many chapters in the Bible. You'll go, yeah, God has a way of doing that. We're told in Romans chapter 12 and verse 1, present yourselves as a living sacrifice, which is your true and proper form of worship. Which means, as we mentioned Sunday, everything I have is placed at God's disposal. He can do whatever he wants with it whenever he wants. And when he moves, I do it. He can do that through his word. He also does that through his spirit. Galatians 5 and verse 25. Keep in step with the spirit. When he leads us to do something, puts in our heart, I should do this. I really should do this. Do it. And it will be a sacrifice. But that sacrifice made under the prompting of the Spirit of God is something that God will bless. Here's the thing about the nature of all true sacrifice. It impacts my lifestyle. If it doesn't impact your lifestyle, it's not really a sacrifice. You're still living the way you're living. It's fine. Sacrifice in the Bible is going to impact our lifestyle to some degree. It costs me something. I love what David said in 1 Chronicles somewhere. I think it's chapter 16, but I'm not entirely positive. But he's getting ready to make a sacrifice, and there's this guy who goes, oh, hey, I'll give you some land and animals to sacrifice. And David goes, oh, no. And he makes this statement. He said, I will not sacrifice to God that which costs me nothing. Yeah, it's got to cost me something, or it's not actually a sacrifice. Now again, everything ties back to Jesus and the cross. Kind of cost him something. Kind of impacted his lifestyle a little bit, didn't it? Come into this world and died on the cross. That's the person I follow. I too want to live a life of sacrifice. But I believe that my sacrifices bring immeasurably great benefit into my life and into our world. I believe that it is critical that we as Christians, particularly in the West, relearn what it means to make actual sacrifices, to give to the place it actually affects my lifestyle. I think this can be done in ways that are practical and might not hurt as much as most people think. On our website, Steve, and the Imagine More tab, where we have all this amazing information laid out for people, all about the campaign, the vision, all that stuff is answered there. The pictures, the diagrams, it's all there. How to pledge, how to donate, all that's there. We have this little chart toward the end that basically gives us little examples of how if we gave up this, over the course of a month, a year, or 3 years, here's what you could give.
Right.
And suddenly you realize, I could make little everyday sacrifices that actually add up to a lot more than I thought I could do. I just happen to have that web page available on my handy iPad right here. And it's things like this. It's like, if I gave up 2 cups of gourmet coffee a week, talking to myself here, if I gave up 2 cups of gourmet coffee a week, I could say, what, $10 a week? Did you know that over the course of the 3 years, that comes out to $1,560, and all I gave up was a couple of cups of my favorite coffee in the course of a week? I'm making a sacrifice. I wouldn't even call it a great one, but I'm giving up one thing for the sake of another. It's how we define sacrifice on Sunday. That's what it is. Give up this for that. If we sacrifice one meal out, and I did some studies because I do stupid stuff like this. The U.S. average for a household is to spend $200 a month on eating out. If I cut that in half and I saved $100 a month by not going out once or twice a month, that's $3,600 in a 3-year campaign. And I just gave up going out to eat once or twice a month. Things like reducing your budget for gifts or vacation. I'm not even saying stop giving gifts. If you cut out $10 a month in your budget for gift giving, that's $1,560 in a 3-year campaign. The average U.S. American family spends $2,500 on vacation. If I reduce that by like 5%, that's $30 a month, $260 a year. That's $1,080 over the course of the campaign. These are all little ways. If I cut back on my groceries, $30 a month. Do you realize the thousands of dollars that adds to? What I would challenge people to do is this. Find those little sacrifices you could make. Because now it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. I can make that sacrifice. I can forgo this and that and that. And before you know it, it's like, it adds up to $5, $10, $25, $50,000. I've known people that are like, you know what? We were going to buy a car. I'm going to go 3 more years on the car I have right now and just postpone those car payments. And in doing that, they gave $6, $8, $10 more $1,000 to the campaign by just putting something off rather than doing it now. There are so many creative ways that we can go about making everyday sacrifices that add up to a bigger sacrifice than we thought we could make so that God's vision can become a reality. And I call people to make sacrifices. Right. It is so Christ-like. I've already explained, I am in my life because I believe this is what God wants me to do, and I want to be like Jesus and be a person who's willing to make sacrifices. I challenge people to join me. Join our staff, join our leaders, do the same thing. God's blessing will be immeasurably poured out on our lives and your life individually if we'll live this way.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to that quote you said from David, I absolutely love that. I think that, man, that needs to be said more often. I will not sacrifice anything to God that costs me nothing.
It costs me nothing.
And if we got to get some skin in this game.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you call Connections home, if this is your place where you're like, I am investing I'm invested in what God is doing right in this place. Man, we are calling you to sacrifice, and we are doing that on Sunday. if you were with us this past Sunday, you probably received one of these cards. And on this card, it just says, I'm ready to imagine more. And then there's a QR code on the back. There's also the website you can go to. If you did not receive one, if you're watching right now, but you want links to all of the stuff that we're talking about, I'm going to put it on the bottom of the screen right now. This is a link directly to the Imagine More campaign. It's my3c.org/imagine-more. On there, you're going to get all the information that we've been talking about, but you're also going to find the links, the direct links to make your pledge, which is just a form. Actually, when we do the pledging, it's just filling out the information, letting us know what you're planning on giving over the course of the next 3 years. And we encourage everyone to do that, because that's going to give us the best picture of where we are and how we're moving forward. But there's also a direct link to the donate tab, and on that you can earmark and bookmark it for the Imagine More campaign. So that's available for you right now. I highly encourage you. If you have more questions about our Imagine More campaign, please ask. This is the best format that we have right now to answer all of your questions. You're more than welcome to approach us on Sunday and come and talk to us. But as you know, Sundays, there's a lot of people here, and it gets a little crazy. And for us to have the time necessary to sit down and actually answer the question, this is probably the best format. You could also reach out to us if you want to just fill out a Connect card. That will take your name and your email address and your contact information. We can also directly contact you if you want that, or you can just go to our Ask a Question tab. Everything there is anonymous, and we'll get to answering those questions right here on our Q&A each week. Because I imagine there are more questions.
Absolutely.
There's more still, maybe hesitation, but we encourage you, invest your time in prayer. Seek God during this time to know what He wants you to sacrifice during this time as we continue to chase after the vision God has placed before us to impact His kingdom the greatest right here in Schoolcraft, in Southwest Michigan, in the Kalamazoo area. We believe amazing things are on the horizon, and we know that with the proper tools, we have a bigger impact.
Absolutely.
And that's really what this building is.
It's all about.
It's just a tool.
That's right.
There's nothing magical about the building. It just gives us a little more space to invite more people in to hear the gospel.
Yeah. The campaign verse, Ephesians, that God is able to do exceedingly more than we can ask or imagine. And I believe that implicit in that is a challenge to imagine, if God is who He says, what might He be able to do in this world through us? It's like, why not us and why not now? It's a collective version of Isaiah going, "Here am I, Lord, send me."
Yeah.
Right? It's like, God, your eyes roam to and fro throughout the whole earth to show yourself powerful on behalf of those whose hearts are loyal toward you. And I believe we can be a people that God does amazing things through, more than we could even imagine, if we're just willing to do what He asks us to do as we move forward. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen through the gifts and service that people in our church are rendering right now.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Good things are ahead of us. We know that for sure.
Amen.
Well, thank you for joining us this Thursday evening. Hopefully you guys are excited. Spring is coming. We've had some crazy weather. It's up and down, but we are looking forward to spring happening, but Easter is right around the corner. Like we are knocking on Easter's door. So I just want to invite you to come on out to one of our Easter services. It's coming up on April 20th. We are having 4 services.
4 services, yep.
Our service times are at 8 o'clock, 9:10, 10:20, and 11:30. We are also creating a brand new worship experience here on that Sunday morning.
I'm excited about that, Steve.
I know.
I really am.
What it does is it's giving us a little bit of breathing room in our current facility that we know doesn't house enough, but it's going to create a really unique, fun, amazing Easter experience for us right here.
And this shows, I think, and I know you want to wrap things up, and I'm going long, but that's the role I usually play. Our drive to be as creative as we can in having room in our hearts and our building for people that are seeking God. Because Steve has basically designed a unique worship experience for our multi-purpose room, complete with ginormous TV screens, new sound. He's sound treated that room so that the noise won't bounce around in there.
Yep.
It'll be good. It's going to have its own worship set that's going to be a little more acoustic. The message, however, will be streamed into the room, so you get the exact same message, but there will be a unique experience that I think is going to be kind of cool. So you won't feel like, we got shoved into a room because there's no room in the auditorium. It's like you're going to have a cool experience that's there.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful. And we're renting a huge tent so that our kids who use the multi-purpose room on most weekends can have an activity time, so there's also room for them on the other end of the building.
Correct.
So we've made a fairly significant investment of time and resources to make this Easter as accommodating as we can for all the people we can, so the beautiful news of a resurrected Jesus who gives eternal life to all who will trust in him can go out to as many people as possible.
Absolutely. And that's driven by the fact that we can't turn anyone away.
No.
We want everyone to show up to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ every single week. And so we need to be as creative as we can
Exactly right.
to make that happen.
Yep.
And we want that experience to be memorable and excellent, right? One of our driving
that's right.
values here at Connection is excellence. So how do we do everything leading with that excellence?
Yep.
So,
and I think people will see that.
I
think so.
I think so. I think we've done a lot of testing on it. We're about ready to go, but we're excited. So we do want to invite you. We invite everybody to come every single week, but especially for Easter. Again, our Easter services are at 8 o'clock, 9:10, 10:20, and 11:30 in the morning. Everybody should be out right in time for Easter lunch.
Yep. Indeed.
Including all our volunteers. All right. Well, we love you guys. We are so grateful that you guys have been here and have sat with us and listened to these questions being answered. We can't wait until we can do this again next week. We'll see you then. And just until then, we want you to know that here at Connections, we do love you. But more importantly, God loves you. We'll see you next time.